Good day, everyone, especially to our teacher, ma'am. So, allow me to introduce myself and my members. I am Nurhaya M. Musa, and I am together with Ms. Nurjana B. Panda by Rasma Muhammad, Mr. Bin Ladin Noor, Muhammad Sla Iskak. We are the Group 8 and we are responsible to discuss the Module 10 entitled The Further Analysis of the Concept. And we are from BEd 1B. Without further ado, let's jump into the introduction. What is dialect? Dialect is the archaic name of logic. It is a discipline of philosophy concerned with the principles of reasoning. So when we say dialects, it is a term used to describe a method of philosophical arguments that involves some sort of contradictory process between opposing sides. Objectives. At the end of the topic, the student should be able to A. Explain the notion of essence and the nature of universals. Essence came from the Latin word essentia. It is a polysemic term used in philosophy and theology as a designation for the property or set of properties that make an entity or substance what it fundamentally is, and which it has by necessity and without which it loses its identity. In connection with the predicables and definition, the term essence has a more restricted sense than it often had in previous chapters. We have often used essence in a broad sense in which it signifies what a thing is. In any way whatsoever, according to the broad meaning of essence, if we grasp what a thing is, no matter how vaguely or indeterminately, even if we grasp it only as a vague and indeterminate something, or something big, something colored, something far away, and so on, we grasp its essence or quiddity. For instance, if we know a horse only as a something brown, we know what the horse is at least insofar as it's something brown. Hence, we grasp its essence in this broad sense of the word. But, in connection with the predicables and definition, we use essence in the strict or proper sense, in which it includes only the basic intelligible elements of the comprehension of a concept but does not include the derived elements. For instance, the essence in this sense of triangle includes figure bounded by three straight lines meeting by twos on a plane, but does not include enclosing three interior angles. The three lines of a triangle are looked upon as a prior to the three angles and more basic than they. If you think of the three lines meeting by twos or 3 points on a plane, you think of what a triangle is primarily and necessarily. As a consequence of having this essence, as a consequence that is of the 3 points meeting by twos or 3 points on a plane, a triangle has 3 interior angles. We do not think of the 3 angles as the reason why a triangle has 3 straight lines as sides, but of the 3 straight lines as the reason why it has 3 angles. Similarly, the essence, in the strict sense of man, is a rational animal rather than speaking animal or tool-using animal, though the note-speaking and tool-using suffice to differentiate man from all other kinds of animals. The reason for this is that rational animal is looked upon as prior to and more basic than speaking animal, tool-using animal, and so on. Man is not a rational animal because he can speak and use tools, rather he can speak and use tools because he is a rational animal. Speaking and using tools may be a reason for our knowing what he is a rational animal. Since we can reason from man's properties and activities to his essence, but they are not the reason for his being a rational animal. Our explanation of universal, of the predicables, and of definition will throw further lights on the nature of essence. In philosophy, essence is the attribute or set of attributes that makes a thing be what it fundamentally is. It is often called the nature of a thing such that it possesses certain necessary metaphysical characteristic or properties in contrast with merely accidental or contingent ones. The concept originates with Aristotle, who used the Greek expression to TNANI, literally the what it is to be, or sometimes the shorter phrase to TST, literally the what it is. This phrase presented such difficulties for his Latin translator that they coined the word essentia to represent the whole expression. For Aristotle and his scholastic follower, the notion of essence is closely linked to the definition of horismus. The English word essence comes from a Latin essentia, which was coined from esse to be by ancient Roman scholar in order to translate the Greek phrase to thein. Universal as abstract. As we saw in chapter 11, consists in considering aspect of a thing while omitting other aspects. Now, a universal as we understand the word in the present chapter, it is a concept, expresses the essence, quiddity, or nature of many really distinct individual subjects, but leaves their differences entirely unexpressed. It expresses just an essence and nothing else. In previous chapters, we often use the word universal as a synonymous with distributed and as opposed to particular and singular. A term and concept are universal in this sense if they stand for each of their inferiors, that is, if they stand for each of the subject that they can be applied to. We shall now use the word universal not as synonymous with distributed, but as synonymous with one meaning of abstract, except that universal, unlike abstract, is used both as a noun and an adjective. Universal in philosophy is an entity used in a certain type of metaphysical explanation of what it is for things to share a feature, attribute, or quality, or to fall under a same type of natural kind. It is a pair of things resembling each other in any of this way may be said to have or to exemplify a common property. In metaphysics, a universal is what particular things have in common, namely characteristics or qualities. In other words, universal are repeatable or recurrent entities that can be initiated or exemplified by many particular things. Paradigmatically universal are abstract, example humanity, whereas particular are concrete, example the personhood or Socrates. However, universal are not necessarily abstract and particulars are not necessarily concrete. For example, one might hold the numbers are particular yet abstract object. Likewise, some philosophers such as D.M. Armstrong considered universal to be concrete. Most do not consider classes to be universals, although some prominent philosophers do, such as John Vigilo. Direct universal. It is a concept signifying an absolute essence, nature, or quiddity as such abstract from all individualizing condition and considered without reference to the mode of existence it has either in the mind or in things. A direct universal, as we have seen, it is considered without reference to its inferiors. It can be referred to its inferiors, but its meaning is independent of any such reference. Suppose now that we go on one step further and actually refer to its inferiors. Suppose we consider an essence as capable of being realized in many subjects and of being predicated of them. What we grasp then is a reflex universal. A reflex universal, therefore, is an essence, nature, or quiddity considered with reference to the individuals in which it is verified and to its potential predicability. It includes no only the comprehension of an essence, but also its multiplicability and its predicability, that is, its extension. To account for the nature of universal, we must distinguish the direct universal, which is the essence considered merely in itself by a direct act of the intellect. The reflex universal, which is the essence considered by a reflex act of the intellect, as common to many individuals. To perceive the direct universal, mere abstraction by the intellect is sufficient. To form the reflex universal, the intellect must regard the essence as common to all the individuals possessing it. The direct universal has a real existence in the thing perceived, but not in the manner in which it is perceived. The reflex universal as such has only an ideal existence. And that's all for my assigned topic. Thank you.
Good afternoon each and everyone, especially to you ma'am. I am Bin Laden Odinor, BEd 1B. Our report today is all about the predicables. It is the part of Module 10. Before studying the predicables, it will be helpful to review pages 17-19 on comprehension, on the distinction between basic and derived notes, on the meaning of absolute extension, and on the inverse ratio of comprehension and extension. To a great extent, the treatment of the predicable is nothing but an elaboration of this nation. Predicable is in socialistic logic a term applied to classification of the possible relations in which a predicate may stand to its subject. The predicables are a classification of reflex universal based on the five ways in which they express the nature of subject of which they are a predicate. They are less the five predicables as spaces, genus, specific difference, logical property, and logical accident. First, we shall give a general survey of the predicables, defining each of them very briefly and explaining why there are five predicables and only five. A general survey. The following analysis contains brief definition of each of the predicables. The general survey may be described as an overall review or first impression that the healthcare provider has of a person's well-being. The first definition of predicables, if expresses the essence of the subject, it either expresses all the basic constitutive notes, that is the fully determined essence, and is predicate of the subject as its species. Number two, or else it expresses either a determinable constitutive elements and is predicate of the subject as its genus. Number three, or else it expresses the determining constitutive elements that distinguishes the essence from other essence belonging to the same genus and is a predicate of the subject as its specific difference. Number 4. Suppose now that the universal predicate does not express the essence of the subject, it is predicate of the subject as a property. Or the last, or else it expresses an attribute that does not belong to the subject necessarily but only contingently and is a predicate of subject as a logical accident. Or letter B, detailed explanation of each predicable, which shall prefix a same of the category of substance to our detailed explanation of each of the predicables. This will help us see the relationship of species, genus, and difference among one another and understand various destination of made in the definition given below. The explanation or definition of the two predicables, it is the species, genus. The first is
So, good day, ma'am. I am Muhammad Baras Masi from B1B. Okay, so number three, difference. A difference is a universal that expresses the constitutive note that distinguishes a species from its genus or a genus from a higher genus. A specific difference is a difference that distinguishes a species from its proximate genus as rational distinguishes man from animal. Okay, so when we say difference in philo, it is a key concept of philosophy, which is denoting the process or set of the properties by which one entity is distinguished from another within a relational field or a given conceptual system. So, ang tiyak na pagkakaiba nila ay ang pagkakaiba ng kanilang tinutukoy, which is from its proximate genus. Pag sinabing genus ay isa sa mga predicable, ang genus ay ang bahaging iyon ng kahulugan na nahuhulaan sa iba pang mga bagay na naiiba sa definendum. Ang isang tatsulok ay isang hugis ng rekta na ang ibig sabihin sa pag-aayos ng genus ng isang bagay ay inilalagay sa ilalim ng mas mataas na universal kung saan ito ay isang species. A generic property in the strictest sense expresses an attribute that results with logical necessity from the incompletely determined essence of the subject of which it is predicated. It arises from the basic constitutive elements that one species has in common with other species, that is from its generic nature. Mortal, for instance, is a generic property of man. Mortality flows from man nature insofar as man is a living organism. Mortality is not distinctive of man but common to all living organisms. The grounds, in other words. Okay, so a generic property in the strictest sense expresses an attribute that results with the logical necessity from the incompletely determined essence of the subject which is predicated siya, which is nagmula sa mga pangunahing sangkap na bumubuo na ang isang species ay may karaniwan sa iba pang mga species na mula sa kanyang generic na kalikasan. When we say mortal is, for instance, is a kind of generic property of man, which is mortality means daloy ng mga tao, nature insofar as man is a living organisms. Mortality is not distinctive of man, so mortality means hindi siya natatangi sa tao, pero common siya sa lahat ng organisms, the grounds, and other worlds. So, John is a rational animal. We give a more complete answers to the question, what is John? Then, when we say John is an animal, since we not only state that he is an animal, but also what kind of animal he is. But we do not imply that one part of John, see his head, as rational and the rest animal but not rational, or that what is signified by rational is mixed with what is signified by animal. As cream is mixed with coffee, the very same concrete reality that is signified by animal is likewise signified by rational animal and vice versa. So, John is a rational animal. Why? Because when we say rational animal, that is a man. According to the Aristotle, he defined a man as a being rational animals. According to this definition, rationality is what we separates man from all other animals. It is what makes them unique. So, in order to prove this to be an accurate definition of man is the definition of rational must first be understood. So, the very same concrete and reality that is signified siya by animal, gayon din sa rational animal and vice versa. Number 4, logical property. In an earlier chapter, when we treated the comprehension of terms and concepts, we distinguished between the basic constitutive notes of an essence and the notes that are implied in and deducible from this. The basic constitutive notes, as we have seen, are the genus and specific difference of an essence. So when we say logical property, that is our identity, existence, predication, and necessity. Also truth. And a property is a characteristic of an object. A logical property is a universal that expresses not the essence of the subject of which it is predicated, but an attribute that accompanies this essence necessarily. So number 5, logical accident. A logical accident is an attribute that not conceptually connected with the essence of the subject that is predicated of. It is compatible with the subject, for otherwise it could not be predicated at all. Logical accident means the logical mistake of inferring a typical specific from a general premises which doesn't not apply to those instances.